It is easy for the president to say, you know what, I want to give each player 150 million naira. That's easy. If we actually want to develop sports in Nigeria, basketball, football, we need to do it at the local government level. That's how we need to develop it. I know people in my own local, I don't think some of them have seen 150 million naira as their budget for sports in the last 10 years. I don't think they have seen it. So the amount you are using to reward one Super Falcons, one D'Tigress player, you are telling me that this is an amount that cannot be invested in local and grassroots sports. That is where the problem lies.
The Super Falcons and D'Tigress were awarded $100,000 each for emerging champions. And this has caused a lot of debate with some people of the opinion that it's too much of a gift for individuals. And that's why we are here on Crossfire, brought to you by Let's Go Bet Nigeria. I am Anushiluwo, Jimmy Anushiluwo, and I'm here with Tunde and Tosin to discuss if that sum as a gift is too much for individuals. Tunde, what do you think about this boon that the president granted the women's national team?
I think that's even to ask that's such a hater question. Like, why is anybody counting the women's pockets? Like, oh, is 100,000 too much? Is it like, why are we discussing gifts that were given to a team for our? It is not. If you are discussing national honors, I'll say probably okay as Nigerians. But do you think they should get national honors? Yes, they got their own end. But the $100,000 cash gift and the houses in Abuja, those are gifts. It does not put anywhere in the constitution that they should have gotten that. So that is just based on discretion of the giver. So the only person that can question the giver is, maybe the people that are funding them. I don't know, but I don't want to get into all of that. But what I do know is that the women's team have been successful for years. Super Falcons, D'Tigress, they've been successful for years. Super Falcons just won number 10. Even though some people argue that it's number 12, but let's say officially number 10. D'Tigress just won number 7. They are easily the most successful teams in their sport on the continent for both male and female. And this is the first time either of these teams have ever been hosted by the president. So, in my opinion, I see it as making up for lost time. That's how I see it. I see it as, years of accumulated benefits, years of accumulated success, years of accumulated recognition. And I think that every single one of them deserve every single thing that they've been promised and that is coming to them. And this is not even... not to say it, women. So he will find a way to tell you that women should somehow get less. But this is not a gender war issue here. This is just basic logic. If it was the men's team that got it as well, I'm not going to sit here and start counting people's pockets and saying, oh, you should have gotten this, you should not have gotten this. It doesn't sound right to me. Like, why are we discussing prizes that people earned and they were gifted? Again, it's not the money that is coming to them from CAF is the money that they are mandated to give them, the $1 million in prize money, which 30% to go to the players and the staff. Perfect. So the only thing to debate here is whether it's coming out of taxpayers' money or it's coming out of the president's personal funds, and those two funds are intertwined nowadays. So please, I don't have the body for prison.
You look like you do, actually.
But yeah, like I think that's just it. I think the women have earned their keep, and we should stop questioning. The fact that we're even talking about it is insulting, is degrading. Because when they gave the Super Eagles MONs for finishing second, I've never seen a team be rewarded for losing before in my life. That's the first time. Presidential hosting and MONs for finishing second in a tournament, losing the final, and you get a prize. So nobody raised an eyebrow at that time except for a few sensible people like myself. And I think Tosin also did that at the time, to be fair. So, but yeah, if just lay off the women, be happy for them, congratulate them. If you know them personally, build them and move on with your life, bro. Do better.
All right. So Tosin, what about you? Do you agree with him that we should not be counting their pockets, or do you have any other opinion?
The intent to reward the Super Falcons and the D'Tigress, the intent is good.
Okay.
The execution is just rubbish, in my own personal opinion. And the reason is that I do not have a problem with, and let me just say this, because if you are familiar with Nigerian sports, you know that we like to skip processes. Let me put it that way. We like to skip processes. So this team have been successful regardless of the time and effort that has been put into grassroots sports development in Nigeria. If you look at the bulk and majority of the Super Falcons, modern day context of the Super Falcons, you see that we've been recruiting players of Nigerian descent that are born abroad. If you see the context of the Tigress, the Nigerian basketball women's team, we've been recruiting players of Nigerian descent also born in America. That's the crux of the team. So I always say this, nobody is more Nigerian than another person. Because me, I was born in K2 and you are born in Boston, Massachusetts. It's fine. Wherever you're born in California, I'm born in K2. If we both carry the same Nigerian passport, we are all equal. However,
wishful thinking.
However, why do we do this? Why do we you invest 150 million naira? Because we are Nigerians. I'm a Nigerian, you're a Nigerian. Let's forget the dollars. Let's talk about naira. You invest 150 million naira on one player as a reward. I forget the 3-bedroom apartment too. 150 million naira. When have you heard that a grassroots tournament in Nigeria is being rewarded 150 million naira? That's the reward for one player. If you have to put it in terms of 21 players, we're talking about close to 4 billion naira.
Grew up in K2, true.
You understand? Because we need to be objective about this thing. So this is not I don't have any problem with anybody getting money from the I'm talking about what is the sustainability? How are we going to develop sports in Nigeria, especially at the grassroots level? The Super Falcons, the D'Tigress, yes, they deserve to be rewarded. But have we put in a process whereby we can actually reap from multiple successes over the years? Because as it turns out, if you look at the Super Falcons, yes, they were dominant and they won, but things are not like the way they used to be before during the perpetual Wokocha era, whereby they used to beat everybody 5-5-0, 8-8-0. These are eventually other countries are developing and are improving their own football also. What are we doing? How are we investing in our own football, in our own sport, both in basketball, both in football? And it is an administrative issue. That's just the simple truth. It is easy for the president to say, you know what, I want to give each player 150 million naira. That's easy, right? Because I'm not blaming the president, because I know the people, the Tinubu people, they are going to come. I don't have any problem with your president. I don't have any problem with your president. If we actually want to develop sports in Nigeria, basketball, football, we need to do it at the local government level. That's how we need to develop it. And can you guarantee that? Because I know people in my own local, I don't think some of them have seen 150 million naira as their budget for sports in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, I don't think they have seen it. So the amount you are using to reward one Super Falcons, one D'Tigress player, you are telling me that this is an amount that cannot be invested in local and grassroots sports. That is where the problem lies. And that is my own problem with it. It's because every problem we have in Nigeria is a bottleneck problem. It's I remember there was a time they said that the National Stadium at Surulere, not the Teslim, the National Stadium at Surulere, that the Lagos State government wants to acquire it, and that there are processes, and that once Tinubu enters, that they will do it. Since Tinubu has entered, since APC has entered, since Buhari's tenure to AP, has there been a conversion from the National Stadium from a federal property to a Lagos property? Because that stadium is just a piece of you understand? So we need to hold our leaders accountable that yes, it is good to honor and reward the Super Falcons, the D'Tigress for winning. They deserve it. However, what are you doing to develop grassroots sports at the local level? And if you are not doing enough as 150 million for just, let's say, a local government in terms of sports development, then the problem is already in your face.
All right. So it seems now that women's sports in Nigeria is already miles ahead of men's sports. What do you think is the reason for this?
I don't even want to say we developed, because I can't remember any time where we specifically took women's sports more seriously. In fact, ahead of this WAFCON, the Super Falcons players were specifically talking about the maltreatment or the
maltreatment,
mistreatment
yeah.
or the lack of preparation,
Washing their clothes.
washing their clothes themselves and stuff like that. And we saw their training kits did not arrive until just before the final. They had to train the entire tournament in their former jerseys. So like you can't. I don't know whether it's just God. Maybe God just likes our women more than our men. To be honest, I can't think of any other explanation on how the women are doing much better than the men. Also, it helps to, note. Another factor to consider is probably the fact that the other women in Africa are just not as good as us. Just like naturally, they are catching up now. Like of Morocco being very intentional with their development. We say South Africa over the years. And a lot of the catching up has to do with familiarity as well. You're playing against same opponents over and over again. Eventually, you catch them at a bad time. But we'll just be more naturally gifted than the rest of the continent. And it's been obvious. You use the advantage of when we're much better than everybody to stack up as many championships. We stacked up as many championships as possible in that period. And, I guess it worked in our favor. But I still... The thing with the development points in Nigerian football is whether you develop or you don't develop. Okay, let's say you don't give the Falcons and you don't give the Tigers $600,000. Is that money going to be invested in Nigerian sports? Money that snakes can swallow tomorrow morning. How much is it? It's $3 million. $3 million is a lot to anybody else, but to Nigerian politicians, that's not a lot of money. That's not like $3 million should not crumble Nigeria's economy. I know that we are poor, like as a nation, like as a people, but our government is definitely one of the richest in the world. I don't think any Nigerian politician could have paid them that 3 million and be fine. And the fact that we know for a fact it will also stop with the Falcons and the Tigress already makes it better because you don't have to worry about paying any of the male teams. Those ones are not with it. See this?
Now you talk calm.
You see these Charlie Eagles? Forget presidential hosting. It's Nigerian police that host them.
See,
once they touch down like this, I just need the Inspector General of Police to welcome them at the airport. So historically, the women have always been better than the men in this country, and I'm glad that they're finally getting their recognition sports-wise, even beyond the two sports we're talking about. If you look at our wrestling, team. Blessing Oburududu,
Odun
Adekoroye. The names that come to mind are the women. There's hardly a sport where I can say that for a fact we are more dominant on the male side. I'm sure if there are, you people in the comments will let me know that. So we have to give credit to where it's due. And because we are, while Tosin is right with a lot of what he said in the sense that it is ultimately more beneficial to everybody to invest that money in sports. Because at the end of the day, would you, if you even ask the players, would you rather go into a tournament without money to do basic things like you get a kids person to be watching your kids and get proper infrastructure, or would you rather rugged your way to the tournament and then come and get $100,000 at the end of the tournament, depending on whether you win or not? So you should be on the side of development ultimately, but because we are in a peculiar situation in this country, you know that money was never going to develop. It's not the $3 million that they give the Falcons and the Tigers each that will stop the development of Nigeria football. It is just what it is. We know what we are as a country, and in the context of what we are as a country, this is the best case scenario. If you want to live in La La Land and look at things from the perspective of Europeans, as Tosin often does, because for some reason he thinks it's from the Netherlands. I'm not even joking. He believes it's from the Netherlands. You might be more optimistic and say, oh, that money would have done this, would have done that. But as a Nigerian, if that money did not go to them, it will go to another set of girls. Those ones don't play sports.
Well, they do play sports. They play with balls, so.
God.
So, Tosin, what about you? What do you think is the reason why women's sports is developing more better than men's sports in Nigeria?
I think it's a combination of three different factors. I think the first factor is basically that firstly the rise of third wave feminism, and as no, it's the simple truth is that like gone are the days whereby women were told to sit in, like Nigeria as far back as 30, 40 years ago was, I mean, women used to get criticized for wearing trousers. I'm telling you, like, you hear these stories, but like,
I'm sure that happened this morning.
like, so
What
like,
is he talking about? Like 30, 40
women,
years.
like, so like, it shows how far we've come, especially in Nigeria embracing the West, and in terms of like women no longer being stay-at-home moms, like the whole rise of women being much more independent, and even if you look at even Pulse Nigeria, you see that most of the leaders in Pulse Nigeria are actually women. So it's not. It's like
Yeah, my favorite is Gosporella.
you see that. So in that context, in that context, I think, and all over the world, like if you look at the end of USL, if you look at the WNBA, you see that like women's sport has now come to stay. Like the rise of women participating actively in sports. And Nigeria is kind of like a mini we are benefiting in that because of like we have a lot of naturalized Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians that are born abroad. Like you look at the Tigress team, I think only just two of them were born, or two or three of them were born in Nigeria. I'm not particularly sure. I think more than half of the team were actually born abroad. So that already tells you that unlike Nigeria, where there's no structure, there's no vision, you understand? Most of these ladies went through a process whereby sports is a priority, sports is a business abroad, especially in America, whereby you go through high school sports. Some high school stadiums, some high school basketball courts are better than the basketball court, our national basketball court at. The last time we actually had to host a basketball event, me and Tunde Wednesday, it was at a hotel.
Yeah.
You understand? So we don't even have these amenities.
It was
So
in the hall of a hotel.
it was in the hall of the hotel. So you look at the kind of investments that proper countries do in terms of like they invest in high school sports and like basketball. Then you now go to the NCAA, which is college sport, which is big time. You understand? Most of like our professional especially in basketball, they played college basketball. You understand? Like D1, D2, whatever. You see the kind of, they are used to like playing in high intense atmosphere, playing in front of large crowd. They have that experience. Some of them are playing, some of them may not make it to the WNBA, like stuff like that. So we are benefiting from that, both in the basketball and both in the women and in terms of football. Also, we are having a lot of naturalized players that played in the US also play for. So we are benefiting from that. Another reason is that, like I said, it's a bottleneck problem. And we are enjoying this period whereby the development in Africa, and it just says a lot about Africa. And let's just be honest, no disrespect, but like that Africa is just pathetic in a way.
No disrespect. Wow.
But like we have a long way to go in terms of like getting to like I think the highest an African country has been to is still the Super Falcons. I think that's the quarterfinal in terms of the FIFA Women's World Cup. It's also the same thing for the FIBA World Cup. I think it was in 2019. The Tigers also go to the quarterfinal, and they go to the quarterfinal of the Olympics. Like we still are not at the cream of the crop. As good as we are, compared, I think we lost by 20-something points to the USA. As good as we are still not at the level of the cream of the crop. So that is the level of Africa. We can beat them. We can humiliate them. We can dominate them. When we meet our own Oga, you understand?
So basically one-eyed person among the blind.
Among the African setting. No shade. No shade.
That's what his doctor told him.
So those are the advantages both the Tigress and the Super Falcons have among their contemporaries. When you look at men's football, like this is, I think women's football, I think the first tournament was in 1992, 1990, if I'm correct. The first Africa Cup of Nations, I think, was in 1957 or 1954. So, like, the first real edition. So, like, we are talking about a 40-year head start compared to women's football, women's sport. So, the amount of money, the amount of investment, like, is it not me that said that Nigeria will not go to the World Cup? Do you know when I said Nigeria will not go to the World Cup? I said it in 2023. That was 2 years ago. Just for you to know the competition level, the amount of resources, the amount of preparedness you need to have. So as much as we want to celebrate the women, don't let us compare them to the men. The men are dying out here. Yeah, when they go to play, they are like is hand-on-hand combat. It is a lot of war, it's a lot of mental preparation. The game is much more physical in terms of like using if you watch, especially it's a very apparent in basketball. If you watch women's basketball, I stayed up, like I literally just even stayed up to watch the WNBA. You watch women's basketball, you watch men's basketball. If you don't love women like I do,
What?
you may not be.
This is taking a different turn.
If you don't love women like I do, you may be forced to turn off the TV. But you just have to appreciate that this is how they can play the game and appreciate it that way. So let's not compare women and men.
So I think there was a compliment in there somewhere. You have to find it by yourself.
Well, is $100,000 individually too much of a gift? That remains the question. What about you guys? What do you think about this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. I am Anishilowo, Jimmy Anishilowo, and this is Crossfire, brought to you by Life's Comments.